Hello guys, today I want to talk about Siege in Age of Empires 4, and specifically I want to talk about how I would change Siege in Age of Empires 4. Many players are not very happy about Siege, I myself am a little bit dissatisfied, so here I wanted to think about some changes I would like to make to Siege. Let me start by just saying that Siege engines of course are very important to break enemy fortifications, to counter ranged unit masses that can be oppressive, and to promote position and gameplay, when you have to slowly fight for territory. But also there are a lot of problems with siege engines. Most common problems of course is with mangonels and with springalds, because mangonels can be oppressive at destroying unit masses, and springalds are countering all other siege units. So this is why game often revolves around springalds and around countering opponent springalds. I will call this springald wars. We can also see a lot of top players being dissatisfied with the situation, which is also not very good. Some of them are Wham, Papipo, Vortex, and at some point Beastie. And this is why I want to approach this problem. I want to try to find some fixes, some solutions that would get rid of the problems while promoting these functions. I will start by simply going through each individual siege unit, then we'll talk about siege functions, which functions are necessary, which are not really necessary. Then I would identify the problems and try to suggest some solutions. My assumptions is 1 versus 1, competitive gameplay, so if springalds and mangonels are good, players will use them. Also only talking about siege changes, no changes to emergency repairs or Berkshire, though I think they also should be changed. And this is the date I'm making this review. Let's start by quickly overviewing each siege unit. We'll not cycle too much on each individual one. Alright, so Ram. Ram is a melee siege unit. It is very good in Feudal Age, but it is really the only siege unit in Feudal Age, except for Siege Tower. You can use it to break towers, you can use it to break town centers or walls, or even keeps. It is susceptible to melee damage, so this is not being very actively used in late game, except for split push, for distractions. But if your opponent is not countering you, you can spam Rams. Next one is Siege Tower. This is not being used at all currently. The only use for it is trolling strategy with Ibis or Abbasid. When you go close to enemy base, you make a cheap Siege Tower, you garrison inside, use it to lame under opponent's town center or towers, stop production. We will talk about it later, but it's not good and it's not being used. Trebuchet is a long-range siege unit, which is used to counter enemy buildings and enemy defenses. It is a staple, of course we need trebuchets, they're easier to defend than other siege units. Bombards are more expensive equivalent. They're not as long shooting, but they deal much more damage. If you want to actually push, you often go for bombards. And one way to stop them right now, most popular way, is by going springalds. And springalds is the universal anti-siege unit. You can stop any other siege unit with it, which is why it's very popular, and people often even go springalds preventively. Then we have mangonel, which is our anti-unit siege unit, and it is originally anti-range siege unit, right, because it gets 50% bonus damage to ranged units, but it's also very effective against any unit masses, which makes it just so good, so oppressive. It's also capable of killing entire unit groups if your opponent just turns around and lets you shoot. Lastly, Rebaldequin, I think it's a little better brother of Mangonel, better as in better balanced. It's not capable of killing entire unit groups because it doesn't have an AoE effect, it just shoots very rapidly, as far as I know. It doesn't feel oppressive, it can be good, but it can also be broken with ranged units. And it also has some melee armor. What are some functions of the siege? Why do we need siege units? First of all, of course, is to destroy early game defenses in Feudal Age when your opponent is trying to age up or trying to go for 2 town centers. You can use rams, you can garrison units inside, and there is this annoying minigame when you garrison your units inside, then your opponent tries to break your ram, you ungarrison them, attack and garrison them back, so your opponent has to garrison villagers, etc. This game can be a little annoying, but rams are a staple. We cannot get rid of them, you need them to punish feudal greedy strategies, which is why I think this function is absolutely essential for the game, to promote more aggressive playstyles. Function number 2 is to destroy later game defenses. I also think this is an absolutely essential function. You need to be able to break keeps, to break walls, palisade buildings. There is no question about this. Currently you can do it with bombards or trebuchets or maybe big amounts of rams. Yes, this function we need it. And function number 3, which I think is not as important, but also important, is countering units. Now we can use mangonels, especially with palisades or some keeps or some fortifications, to counter all enemy unit masses. Here you can see mangonels killing some archers and some desert traders, even damaging knights. They are very effective for this. It can be a little bit oppressive in some cases. If your opponent lets you shoot a big clumped group of units with mangonels. We will also talk about it later, but this function is good to have, but not necessary, I think. And function number 4 is to counter enemy siege units with springalds, as we can see here. You can use it to slow down enemy pushes or stop them. You can use it to counter mangonels. So the previous example doesn't happen with mangonels. If you can see 2 mangonels, you can go springalds and break them. And this function, I think, after some changes, we can get rid of this function. And I will explain why. Now let us list some problems we have with siege. First problem is that siege, especially mangonels, is too powerful in big fights. I will just briefly comment on these examples. Here we can see green ranged army. This is about 50 units, maybe more. And we can see small yellow army of 15 units. It is about 3 times or 4 times the difference. But yellow player has 1 mangonel, which makes it now impossible for the green player to advance. Because there is nothing to stop this mangonel, it will absolutely shred this green ranged mass. You already can see the impact from 1 shot. It's absolutely terrible for green player. And this mangonel is only 3 population. This is like 18 population against 50 population. Doesn't feel good to play against, and I don't think this is good for the game. Second example, usually it happens, your opponent gets bombards, get mangonels, starts pushing you. It's very difficult to stop at this point. If you go for springalds, they can be sniped with bombards or with springalds, and fight is already lost. Big amount of siege can be very, very oppressive. Let me also show this example from Red Bull Vololo. This is Puppy Power vs Spam. These are 2 of the best, along with Marion Lord, with Beastie, with players like them. They are 2 of the best players in the game. And Wham here has bigger army. Army value, you can see it's more for Wham. And he has a lot of crossbows and some spearmen, while Peppy Pow has knights, some small amount of arbaletier and 1 mangonel. And what does Wham need to do? He needs to break this mangonel with spearmen, or he's going to lose a lot of crossbows to this mangonel. And Puppy Pow is losing arbaletier to save this mangonel, and because spearmen are breaking mangonel, they cannot defend crossbow from knights. And even if Wham doesn't lose this fight, it is not efficient for him, right? Because knights are charging, and he has more army, he should be able to easily win this, but he is not able to do it. Because of this mangonel, which you need to counter, and you need to use all your spearmen, instead of using them on knights, you need to use them to counter this mangonel. Problem number 2 is connected, it's springal wars, so players don't really want to play against mangonels. What do? They go for springalds. And to counter springalds, you go your own springalds. Or your opponent with springalds will just get mangonels. In such kind of situations, with a lot of range units, with palisades, it's almost unavoidable. At some point, some of you will make mangonels and siege engines and springalds. Springals are the best option to counter enemy siege. And this results in this springald war. It's not fun. It's just slow, it slows the game down, it's similar for every civilization, which is why I think it's not good for the game. Problem number 3 is a little bit of a secondary problem. It is the design of siege tower or ram, specifically I mean that you can garrison units inside, and for idle time from enemy villagers, it becomes an annoying minigame. Don't think it brings anything to the table. Not really easy to stop, especially against Abbasid, because if you go horsemen, they have spearmen inside. and they kill your horsemen. Also, siege tower should be used to scale stone walls. It shouldn't be used for strategies like this, in my opinion. Okay, what solutions would I propose to try to fix these problems? Yeah, I have about 5 suggestions in total. I think they all should work together, especially the first two. Some of them are subjective, but I think they would lead to a better siege design. First of all is rebalancing mangonels. My goal here is to make mangonels an effective ranged unit counter, effective and reliable, like javelin throwers, but also not oppressive against unit masses. To make mangonels not effective against everything, right? I will explain it with this diagram. Now we have mangonels shooting and making an impact like depicted here. It is a big circle, it's a fairly big radius, and units inside get medium damage. And you need several shots to kill all of these units, so neither you can kill ranged units reliably with mangonels, they can be dodged, but also they cannot be ignored because they are very dangerous. This design is like a demolition ship, right? It is like a demolition ship on land, not really fun to play against. And after my change, what do I propose? I propose that we make these shots maybe a little bit quicker, increase projectile speed, increase attack speed, so they happen more frequently, they are difficult to dodge, or maybe impossible to dodge, but now they will do higher damage in the middle, right where it impacts, and lower damage, and or maybe no damage, or just lower damage on the edges, and this radius should be smaller. In this way, mangonels now will reliably be able to kill 1, 2, maybe 3 crossbowmen or ranged units at a time. Depends on the balancing. But that they will not be able to kill unit masses, unless it's a very narrow choke point. This means that if you have 30 crossbowmen and I have 2 mangonels, it is not like I make 2 lucky shots and at some point I kill 20 crossbows. Now I kill maybe 2 crossbows every 3 seconds or every 4 seconds, or maybe 5 crossbows every 5 seconds. And this becomes more reliable, it becomes better, it feels better. You cannot really dodge it, and you can use all this time, all this micro, instead of dodging mangonel shots. Now you can control your other units in a fight. This is a summary of what I'm proposing. We reduce mangonel damage, we increase bonus damage versus ranged to compensate. Mangonels, this way, they become more effective against ranged, or same efficiency against ranged, but less efficient against man-at-arms or spearmen, for example. We reduce area of effect, we increase damage of projectiles at the center, we increase projectile speed, so it's more difficult to dodge, and maybe we increase attack speed to compensate. After this, we will get mangonels that are situationally good for defending positions, for countering ranged units. They are difficult to dodge, and they will not be able to wipe out unit masses. If you have 3 mangonels now, it's not an auto-win. Let me just quickly jump back to this example. In a situation like this, green player would not be going back. He will not be afraid of this one mangonel. He could just go in, destroy all these units, wait until some melee units or maybe just surround this mangonel and kill it. He would not lose many of them. He will not be in danger of second mangonel coming and just wiping out this whole mess. So this is what we would get. Some side effects would be that unit masses would become slightly better, which I think is good. Mangonels would not be able to kill like spearmen or man-at-arms masses, or quickly wipe ranged units. And springalds, they stop being a necessity. You no longer are required to mass springalds when you see mangonels. You can just produce fewer ranged units and more melee units, and it will feel better to play. This is why my solution number 2 is to remove springalds and culverins, because I don't think they add anything to the game in a meaningful way. Let me just explain it with 2 quick examples. First is when you're sieging someone or being besieged. In this example, we have this player with a keep, this player with 2 trebuchets trying to break it. You can go springals to counter the trebuchets, and I can go springalds to counter your springalds. You have a choice to attack trebuchets, in which case you will kill some trebuchets, you will lose some springalds, and you need to rebuild springalds, and I need to rebuild trebuchets. Or you can attack my springalds, in which case springalds on both sides get destroyed, and we have to rebuild springalds, both of us. In both cases, this push with trebuchets is just slightly slowed down. Nothing really changes, we just go more springalds, unless one of us just misplays and loses springalds because of mismicro, which is very, very annoying in this game. And imagine we didn't have ability to make springalds. Trebuchets would still be bombarding the skip, but we would not have to make springalds. Maybe this push would be a little quicker, but we can work it out by maybe increasing keep HP or debuffing trebuchets. But what's important, we would be rid of this unnecessary springald fight, which doesn't really change the fact that these trebuchets are going to keep shooting the skip. Second case when you want to use springalds is against mangonels in a fight or maybe Rivaldiquins. So these are two armies, red army, blue army, they're fighting, mangonels are trying to shoot armies. Here we will use springalds to shoot either mangonels or springalds, and if I kill springalds, if you kill my springalds, it all repeats itself, we just replenish springalds. If I kill your mangonels, then you kill my springalds maybe, and you can rebuild your mangonels, and I have to rebuild my springalds. Because if I don't rebuild my springalds, you are going to kill my mangonels with your springalds, and you are going to build your own mangonels. So this becomes this endless cycle of mangonel springald until one player just gets bored or decides to go for a split push or decides to go for a raid, or just leaves the game. People don't really want to play this. It doesn't feel good to control, and the way this is being played like this is because mangonels are very strong at the moment. But if my change with the mangonels comes through, mangonels, they will no longer be oppressive, they will not be completely dominating this fight with big unit masses, they would be just like javelin throwers against stretched units, maybe a little bit more effective. Which is why now, if you don't have springalds, if I don't have springalds, we can just try to counter mangonels with horsemen, with melee units, but overall just not care about them so much, because mangonels would become just one unit among many units, and we would not have to constantly micro our springalds, constantly try to save or repair our mangonels. I think it would only be better. What am I proposing? Yeah, just remove all springalds, remove all culverins, and you're using them basically right now to just break enemy siege. You're not using them on enemy units, except for just slightly poking or where you have nothing better to do. I think this is just a good change. It will simplify the game, and it will make it more enjoyable, more dynamic. More compositions would be viable, you would no longer have to use a lot of springalds, a lot of siege, and armies would be quicker. So my suggestion number 3 would also be to nerf bombards and grey bombards. First of all, to decrease bombard damage and range, because if we get rid of springalds, we need to somehow slow down bombard sieges, right? Because right now, if you have 3 or 4 bombards, you're very quickly going through opponent buildings, and one way to stop it is by going springalds. Maybe it will not stop it, but it will slow it down, because now I have to use my own springalds to kill your own springalds. So if you're getting rid of springalds, why not just skip this extra step and make bombards slightly less efficient? It will be much easier, I think. Also, nerf or heavily nerf or remove damage maybe to units. Bombards should not be able, I think, to attack other siege units, because they will be just like springalds, right? And I don't think they should be able to snipe ranged units. Right now this function is in the game, but I don't think it's very good. Bombards right now can be easily used to snipe units like mechters and elephants. Now, if you play elephants, they can get sniped by bombards very quickly. Also, great bombard area of effect. I think this just needs to go. It's like a mangonel, but even somehow more oppressive, and Ottoman playing mass grade bombard, it's not good for the game. They should be very strong against buildings, with this I agree, but I don't think that they should be good against units. Overall, we will get that bombards now will push more slowly, and you will not need the springal mass to stop it. Since we don't have springals and culverins, and bombards will not be effective against other bombards after this change, yeah, we will just get rid of this extra step, and now, if bombers are pushing, you will have some extra time to force a fight, to force some action on the other side of the map, to do something meaningful, instead of just going for a springled fight. Also, elephants would be playable. What can I say? Solution number 4 would be to redesign siege towers. Of course, this is a secondary issue, right? It's not related to mangonels. But I think siege towers need to be easier to use. I think people are not using them mainly because they feel bad to use. If you can easily click on a wall and siege tower would connect to it, and then it would become 0 population, so it doesn't take any population space, and it would become uncontrollable. You could just, click units on stone walls, they would automatically go through this siege tower, and of course it could be broken. I think it would just be a better design. Maybe people would actually start going for siege towers to scale stone walls for some surprise. I think it's a good element of gameplay, potentially. Also, we need to remove ability to garrison inside siege towers, and this way you will not be able to cheese siege towers to go under enemy town centers and stop resource collection or enemy towers. Yeah, we should just change it so siege towers are easier to connect to stone walls and controlled by zero population and cannot be used to garrison. Solution number 5 is a collection of minor fixes I thought about. These are more subjective. I think, though, that they should be good for the game. First of all is to rework rams. Right now you have this minigame when you are pushing in feudal age, and you are garrisoning archers inside, and you are ungarrisoning them and shooting enemy villagers. So your opponent has to break your ram but also garrison his villagers, and you garrison and ungarrison your archers. It becomes very annoying, very micro-intensive. Don't really think it adds anything of the value to the game, and I think it needs to be removed. And this is one good way to remove it. We can limit units aside to 3 to 5, which is much less than 16. Currently it's limited 16, but now we give them ability to shoot from inside the ram. This way we get the same effect. When you're getting pushed with rams, you need to use villagers and you will lose some villagers because they will be shot from inside the ram. But now you do not need to micro as much, your opponent doesn't need to micro as much. I think it will be just better, less annoying for everyone. Second is to increase trebuchet accuracy, because right now trebuchets can sometimes miss towers or small buildings. I think it's a really weird design choice that they can miss towers when you can just ground click them to avoid this. I think they need to get rid of this. Next is to remove English trebuchet unique technology, shattering projectiles, because it's just like mangonels. This needs to go. It can be too oppressive, especially if we get rid of springalds and culverins. Next is very subjective, but I would remove Hierosyphon unit damage. It's very unreliable, it can quickly kill groups of villagers. Imagine you lose 8 or 10 villagers when trying to break this ram. It's a GG moment. And also it's very unreliable and it's difficult to use, and your opponent can play around it. Again, it's just a needless micro. Of course, also we need to buff Tower of Sultan, because right now it's expensive and it's easy to break. People, when they make it, usually they regret it. It's like a meme at this point. Not sure how would I buff it, maybe just need to make it cheaper or stronger and just find the sweet spot. And lastly, I would nerf Rebaldequin melee armor. I think Rebaldequins already feel good to use at the moment. They do not need extra melee armor. You can protect them with other units, because basically I don't think Rebaldequins should be usable without any units. But right now, if you're being rushed by opponent melee units, you can just go pure Rebaldequin and stop it. Don't think it's very good for the game. Okay, so let me conclude by saying what do we get, what should we get after these changes. I think we will get a much better game because of these outcomes. First of all, we will have no more springald wars, and obviously it's a big benefit for most players. Of course, springald wars is a form of skill expression, of course, but I don't think it's meaningful, and I don't think it's very fun. Next, yeah, and also you can see we will lose nothing by skipping springals, because siege will still be slower if we nerf bombards. And mangonels, they will be weakened, which is why you will not need to stop them with springalds. You will not need to insta-kill them every fight. Mangonels, second, they will not be oppressive. It's a huge benefit. We will still have them in the game. They will still be used to hold some positions to defend against ranged units, but now they will not be used to just auto-win any big fight if you have something to cover your mangonels. As a result of these two, compositions without siege will finally be viable in straight fights. You will be able to go the whole game without making any mangonels, and obviously without making springalds or culverins. Maybe only making trebuchets and bombards and rams. I think this is completely fine. This is how the game should be, in my opinion. You should have some options to different unit compositions. Cheese strats, also we will get rid of cheese strats. No more mass-grade bombards from Ottomans. No more garrisoning units inside siege towers or rams, and microing and using archers to kill villagers under your town center. And lastly, siege engines overall, after these fixes, they will feel better to use, perform better, and they will feel much better to play against. It will feel, I think, more fair when you are losing. Maybe you're guaranteed to lose 8 or 10 ranged units to mangonels when you took maybe not the best engagement. And you don't have this 50% or say 60% risk of losing all your ranged units. I think it will be just more fair, more fun to play. Okay, so thank you for watching this, I don't know what to call it, analysis, suggestion video. I hope some of the developers see this. Maybe they will look at this and find my suggestions helpful. At least I think it could improve the game a lot. Yeah, if you have any suggestions yourself, if you think you have some good ideas about siege rework, be sure to leave them in the comments. So thanks for watching this. Have a good night. Probably will stream soon and maybe talk about it some more. Have a good night.